Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's eSpeaks, we're talking about the managed services sector, and we'll also look at a multi-cloud strategy supported by a managed services provider. To discuss that, I'm joined by Eamonn O'Neill, co-founder, director, and CTO at Lemongrass. Eamonn, very good to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
And Eamonn, tell me you're totally ready for the three-day weekend. Is it time, or what's your feeling?
It feels like it's still a million miles away, even though it's pretty close. But yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay. I like that. Does that mean you're not done with your work for the day? How could it still be a million miles away? Here we are on Friday. I like that. I like that thought.
I just have so much more I want to get done today. But yeah, I'll be looking forward to having a few drinks with my friends on Monday.
Fantastic. So let's talk about the managed services sector and those providers that assist companies who work with the leading cloud providers. What are the trends affecting this sector here in 2022?
Well, I guess I suppose the overriding trend is growth. We're still seeing continued strong growth in this space. As more customers adopt cloud, and that just creates an increase in demand on our team. So it's something that we have seen this year. We're going to grow 60%, which is fantastic.
Wow.
But I think that's certainly the first growth trend is just the pace of growth is not slowing down at all. But also as people adopt cloud, we're seeing customer asks beginning to mature. Like only a short while ago, they were asking for those essential cloud skills like IaaS skills, FinOps, SecOps. But today they're asking for other items as well. I mean, first thing we're seeing now on that list would be the operating model. Customers ask, what capabilities do I need in-house? And what do I need from my partners to operate SAP on cloud? In fact, operate cloud generally well. And that's become a big topic and it's a great question because the value of cloud comes from your operating model and how you manage it. Second thing we're seeing as a new ask is around automation. And we certainly see that automation on cloud is something that's been around for quite a while. And you certainly in the non-SAP spaces, we've seen there's a reasonable maturity there, but in the SAP area, it's really new. And we see SAP customers saying, so how can I take advantage of cloud automation in the SAP operations? And then I'd say the last thing we're seeing as a real trend is around cloud native innovation. So, for customers who've made it to cloud already, the question they ask is, how can I take advantage of the pace of innovation that the hyperscalers are putting into cloud native services to get more value? So, while the general migration to cloud is still booming, we're starting to see customers asking smarter questions from us about what they want to see.
Interesting. Well, you talked about the SAP part of that and some of the companies that are newer to the cloud. Did I hear you correctly in that?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a general observation, a lot of people moved non-SAP workloads to cloud. So maybe not their core workloads initially. They might have dabbled with some of the less risky items. And we tend to see that the SAP or ERP systems generally are now beginning to hit Main Street. They're in the technology adoption curve. They're beginning to really peak. Whereas I suspect a lot of the web services and websites and that kind of stuff would have been done. They'd already be on cloud.
Right. Well, let's take a look specifically at those SAP customers in the cloud. For them, what do you think they see as the biggest challenges?
Well, I think you could probably break it. Normally, the challenges we break into technical and cultural. SAP brings its own technical challenges. I mean, first off, it's built to migrate. It's a good thing. It's actually very robust when it comes to moving it around. But of course, customers are very nervous about that because it tends to be with their ERP systems tends to be right in the heart of the enterprise. So the first things they're looking for, first challenges are just simply the capabilities to do a migration. And what we see are just the first things we tend to talk to customers about are integration is a technical challenge that they need to understand. Primarily inbound integration.
So to interrupt you with that, integration between what and what, so I'm clear.
So when you're moving a system to cloud, you're changing its IP address by definition, right? And even today, there are inbound systems looking for an IP address, as opposed to something that's a bit more mobile, like a host name. What you want to be sure is all the inbound interfaces can follow your SAP system to cloud when it moves. And what you do not want is an inbound interface not reaching SAP and potentially inbound orders or whatever it might be not getting recognized. It could be a fairly big impact. So we talk about inbound integration being one of the critical items to look at early on in a migration. Also, the other thing we tend to find is working with the incumbent partner. So a lot of companies have a partner who's already looking after the data center. We realize that working with those partners is really important, because getting data and systems out of a data center can be just as difficult as getting it onto cloud. So working with those partners is really important. That's something we've seen a lot of people trip up on. And then simply, when it comes to lifting and shifting SAP, there's a number of options, each of which requires specific skills. So for example, if you want to switch away from Oracle to HANA, if you want to move to S4, if you want to modernize or upgrade as part of the migration, each of those requires a bit of skill that might not be easy to find in your own team. So we see those kind of technical skill or challenges being the things that are fairly common across all the customers we work on. And then, of course, when it comes to operating on cloud, it's back to those questions I mentioned earlier around what capabilities do you need? What about automation? What about cloud native integration? Those things are very key when it comes to technical challenges once you're on cloud. But along with the technical challenges are some of the cultural challenges. And again, this comes with a bit of experiences to notice what's a bit different about cloud and what does cloud thinking mean, certainly for like an SAP customer. And it's really about, I'd put it down to ownership. The ownership of cloud is it's more broad now than before in the data center, where people might have been in charge of OS, somebody else in charge of databases, somebody else in charge of buying the kit, for example. Well, on cloud, a lot of this bleeds into each other. So when you're provisioning a system, you're not just adding infrastructure, you're also procuring a contract on behalf of your company. So the ability to understand the financial impact of systems, to understand the security impact of adding systems, these are new responsibilities that everybody in the systems team needs to understand. So, it's not just the technical skills, it's also the cultural skills and the need to start thinking more in cloud terms. We see those as the big challenges for customers who are trying to run SAP on cloud.
Something interesting that you mentioned earlier, I think you used the phrase cloud native. How does that work into the SAP deployment? I mean, does SAP work? I mean, is it cloud native? Explain that to me, please. I'm just a little on the dark on that one.
So SAP, what SAP needs to run on cloud are some of the basic services of cloud, like storage, compute, networking, some of the security services. Right. Those things have been around for quite a while, and all the hyperscalers can do those pretty well. So you can run SAP quite easily on any of those hyperscalers. I think the cloud native stuff becomes more interesting when you look at things like extending your business data from SAP into things like data lakes. And then you would use cloud native services for the data lake, like blob storage, like the different types of pipeline to take data out of SAP, and then all the analytics and data capabilities around ML that come thereafter. Additionally, extending business processes into things like API gateways, service meshes, those all use cloud native capabilities as well that the hyperscalers are innovating like crazy on. Now, SAP has got a layer called BTP, Business Technical Platform, which allows you to get some of those from SAP, but also integrate into the cloud native services. So there's a whole area now around being able to select the right service and integrate that cleanly back into your SAP estate.
Well, let's talk about Lemongrass itself specifically. Obviously, the company focuses on SAP. What is the Lemongrass Advantage? Why would I choose Lemongrass?
Well, I suppose when we talk to customers about this, the first thing that we talk about is our experience. We've been working with hyperscalers since 2010. So we've got 12 years experience, which is pretty unique in the market. And And we're very focused. I mean, we only work with SAP customers. What that means is that focus drives excellence. So we've got a team of really great engineers, consultants who've seen pretty much every scenario that an SAP customer would come across. And what that's led to is a 100% success in migrating SAP customers to any hyperscaler. And that comes from our obsessive focus on SAP customers. We really do treat it like it was our own infrastructure, our own landscape. And with that experience, we build patterns. We build not just patterns from a design point of view, from an operate point of view. We've also built it into our own automation. And within Lemongrass, we have encapsulated that into Lemongrass Cloud Platform, which allows us to orchestrate automation to drive in standard patterns and learnings as each new customer comes on board. And with being small, I mean, it has some great strengths. I recently did a blog on this actually, why some customers pick smaller service providers versus the larger GSIs. And interestingly, we find that customers are beginning to identify that they may still want a large provider to integrate across all of the IT landscape, but they're really keen to engage with smaller service providers like ourselves, who've got real focus and real skills to solve the problems that they know require that type of experience. So we work, very happily with some of the larger integrators as part of a program, and many times we work directly with the customer, independently of any other integrator. But yeah, customers tend to pick us for the experience that we bring, the collateral that we bring, the accelerators, and fundamentally the team that we've built up over the last 12 years.
Is there a way, I mean, does Lemongrass itself in any way distinguish between the three biggest hyperscalers, Azure, Google, and AWS? I mean, is that, we do this for Google, we do this for AWS, or it doesn't think that way?
We don't go at it that way. The way we approach this is we meet our customers wherever they want to be. So the majority of the time, a customer has already decided what their strategic cloud is going to be. And there's a number of reasons why. I mean, we tend to find people have their own preferences, but irrespective, they often come to us already with that decision made. And then our job is to help them get their SAP systems onto that cloud, and then also set up an operating model where they can really drive that value. So, we see a lot of similarity across the clouds, but we also see differences. And we certainly try to help customers understand the benefits they can get from each of the clouds. And one of the things we encourage customers to do is really work with those hyperscalers. They're really, all three of them are really keen to engage customers on a journey of innovation beyond storage and compute, beyond the obvious services and even the published services, into innovating new things and coming up with new ideas with customers. So, for us, our job is to help customers get to cloud, run cloud, but also really drive that innovation conversation with the hyperscalers.
Makes sense. Well, let's look to the future. I think companies are always wanting to know what's on the way and how we can prepare for it. I mean, what do you see in terms of the future of the managed service market as cloud continues to grow?
Well, and it certainly will continue to grow. I think that's the exciting thing. I mean, it's almost inevitable. We're going to see more of this. But again, the patterns that I called it earlier, I think are going to track that. We see even more automation will be demanded by customers as they begin to get their head around it. And in fact, I'd even go so far as to say that having automation skills is essential for IT staff going forward. The ability to automate.
When you talk about automation, what is being automated?
Well, put it like this. I mean, any kind of operation you do a number of times is a candidate for automating. And so I'll give you some good examples, right? Patching a system. Patching an SAP system is not just a complex and risky item, but it can actually cause business disruption, even if it's planned downtime. Automation is trying to see which of those steps you could code, and code using cloud native tooling like Terraform, Ansible, other equivalents. So ultimately, what you're trying to do is chip away at the manual activities to keep an SAP system or an enterprise package, chip away at those manual activities, turn them into automated activities. Mm-hmm. Because the benefits are not just higher quality, that it gets done repeatedly the same way, and that it should be cheaper, obviously running it with software than manual, but also it's much faster. Mm-hmm. And when you have a fast change going through, you can get agility into the business. So you can start to do more things. In fact, one of the things that we've started doing with customers is showing how with automation for those type of changes like patching, like resizing, et cetera, we can actually remove entirely the business downtime required to make that change. Now that's music to the ears of the largest companies who really can't afford any downtime when they've got operations running all over the world 24/7. But it also means that they can start to even get on the front foot with change. So for example, historically, people would have patched OS, maybe once a quarter from a security point of view. Mm-hmm. Once they go to cloud, they really have to do it at least once a month. But with zero downtime patching, you can be patching every week or even more frequently and give yourself a better security profile. So we see automation as being essential, and we also see integration growing a lot as well. I mentioned that earlier, the integration imperative, being able to go beyond the package software and move into cloud native integration. And in fact, what we've seen a couple of times, and certainly very recently with a very large oil and gas company, was they said that they'd already moved to cloud, their SAP landscape, and not long afterwards, they started talking with us about their experience. And the CIO said, I asked the CIO, how did she feel it went? And she said, well, it doesn't feel very cloudy. And I asked, well, what did you mean by that? And she said, well, it's not very agile, and I still feel it's difficult to integrate. And when we looked at what they'd done, they had done nothing around automation, and they had done nothing around integration strategies or anything like that into native cloud. They treated it very much like the hyperscaler was just another data center. So one of the things that we've kind of coined, if you like, or at least focused around, is explain to customers it's not enough to get SAP onto the cloud. You've got to get the cloud into SAP. So you've got to bring the cloud thinking to the SAP operating model, and that generally focuses around automation and integration. So I think that those themes are very much the future of managed service companies. I think everybody in managed service should be considering how they can bring those to their customers, and it's absolutely central to what Lemongrass is doing over the next couple of years.
Eamonn, I think you said it. I mean, there's no doubt managed services has a bright future. Companies really need that. Thank you so much for sharing your insight today.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.